Well, we're on track to do 10 races. We're going to start off in Medford and Wairika. We're doing a 2-day race on a 3-day weekend, and we're going to race Coos Bay, Roseburg, Madras, St. Helens, Banks, and Willamette Speedway. Elma's still kind of up in the air. That's a possibility, but if that one falls through, we're going to run another race at Willamette. Things are looking really good this year. The sponsorship's on track. I got a lot of new help. Chris Sine is out there working hard, beating the bushes, trying to come up with sponsors. We have Dom Conti on board. He's announcing here at the swap meet today, and he's been a huge help in helping us work up sponsors. But it's not just that, putting everything together and getting the programs and the drivers' information and everything we're doing. So you wanted me to talk about the rules and the Iron Giant?
Yeah, what's the reason why it all started?
So the biggest reason that the Iron Giant started was Chris Sine in April. There was a race called the Wallbanger in Cottage Grove, and that race was in memory of April's dad. And it was a local race, and they had the local street stock guys there. And Chris and April wanted to make it better, so they went out and they raised a bunch of money to get more drivers to come, and it worked. And what we found out is that as we started getting drivers from different tracks, even with different rules, Cottage Grove racers racing against Willamette, Banks, St. Helens, Madras, Coos Bay racers, as the racers started to get together, we found out that a lot of the rules that everybody seems to obsess on, they don't really matter all that much. They don't give anybody that a competitive edge. So we looked at what made a street stock and where a street stock came from. And, back in the day, every track got to name whatever class they wanted, whatever they wanted to call it. And this causes a lot of confusion. So at one track, a street stock is a car that has absolutely no changes. In fact, I ran street stocks one time where you couldn't have a front hoop or a rear hoop, just a 4-bar cage inside the car. And that was a street stock there, but you go to another track and they would allow weight jacks and headers. So it all depends on the car and the track as to what the definition of a street stock was. We tried to come up with something that was more cohesive, something that everybody could get into. So we opened up the rules, we looked at everybody's rules, and we found two things at almost every track. One was a limiting rule. This is a rule that makes your car slower or less competitive, or is hard to get around. And that's to keep somebody from out of town from coming to your track and beating you. And then there was an open rule, something that your track allowed that nobody else allowed, that you felt like you had to do to be competitive. And if you didn't, you couldn't be competitive at your track, but if you did, you couldn't drive any other tracks. And they did that as a form of protectionism. And by the way, this is not a dig on the tracks, because the drivers are very involved with making this happen. It's exactly how it went down. So nobody wanted the out-of-town guy to come in and kick the local guys' butts, and nobody wanted the local drivers to leave the local track to go off and race other tracks. We looked at all of those rules and found out most of them don't really matter. And by the way, most of the tracks have kind of progressed towards the same set of rules anyway. So the rules are real similar from track to track all over the Northwest. Well, the biggest rule differences being some engine rules, and they're very basic. So we went with just a cast iron head, cast iron block rule. It's very easy to tack, it's very hard to cheat, and very easy to make sure everybody's even. And everybody goes, well, that means you can build a great big motor. And we've got guys with great big motors. They don't win every weekend. They win sometimes, but so do crate motors, so do IMCA cars. We've had a hodgepodge of winners from everything from truck motors, really stock truck motors, to really expensive full-on race motors. But the fact is, you're still limited by the weight and the stock chassis. Even if you put weight jacks on it, it's still stock mounting points, it's still a stock chassis, it's still a stock frame. Even when you buy it from Medieval, it's still a G-body frame. So what we found is, the guy building a car in his garage, which is me, can compete with somebody who has a Medieval chassis and a big motor. And I do, and I've beaten those guys, and they've beaten me. It depends on the week, it depends on the track, the setup, driver, everything has to be in alignment. I'll tell you what, the guys who do the best are the guys you see with the team. If you want to be fast, get together a couple of buddies. That's the way you be fast. And I want to say this to all the beginning racers out there, the guys that are fairly new that are afraid to come run with us, don't be afraid to run with us. we look fast because there's more cars going the same speed closer together. That doesn't mean they're faster. We haven't beaten a track record, as far as I know, in the Northwest in 4 or 5 years. Most of the track records are still held by Camaros, so don't think you can't win with a Camaro. The reason that so many people are going to G-bodies is really about ease. It's easier for them to call Medieval and say, what control arm do I run, what spring, what shock, what setup, what weight, what scales, because there's not a lot of information on Camaros for that. But if you can figure a Camaro out, I still maintain there's faster, and there's a reason that MCA outlawed it. It's because they can beat the G-bodies. So we like to have that mix of cars, from everything from a Mercury Zephyr, oh my God, a Ford, all the way through to Camaros. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see a Javelin or an AMC Pacer out there at some point. We get a big mix of cars, and we do allow a little bit more than what you would allow in a normal street stock class, but we do that because, well, we have so many different tracks with different rules. We want to make sure everybody gets to run, and as long as those rules don't, upset the apple cart and you're not dominant. By the way, let's talk about dominant. Everybody's always worried about one driver being dominant. Dominant is not winning 3 races in a row. Dominant is winning a race by a full lap, when you lap the entire field. But if there's somebody hot on your tail coming to the checkered flag, that is not dominant, that's winning. That's a race. And a guy who wins 3 of those in a row worked his butt off, and his team worked their butt off. And those races are won in the shop. So if you want to be that guy, that's what you got to learn. Anyway, come out and play with us, man. And the only way to get seat time is, get seat time. And the more tracks you drive, the better you're going to be when you get back to your home track. You're going to learn about setup. Our guys they're a family. You can ask any of the racers about setup help, about what you're doing wrong, about what kind of car you're working on. We got a ton of Camaros, we got a ton of G-bodies, we've got a few Chevelles, some Novas. So there's always somebody to look to for some help. Unless you're driving a Zephyr, then you're on your own. You're just kind of nuts anyway. Anyway, that's...
I'm going to ask you one thing. What kind of reception you got from the Northwest, maybe other parts of the nation, when you got all these sponsors? You have the purse $1,000 to win, street stock $100 to start, when usually these local tracks only probably pay out like $100 to win. What kind of reception is that amongst the racers?
I think a lot of racers are excited by it, especially guys that have been around for a while. Younger racers are a little bit intimidated the higher the purse goes. As you know, we've had races up to $5,400. We had a $4,200 to win race this summer. They think that means that all of the faster cars will be there. None of the cars are actually faster than any of the other cars. Look at the lap times. By the way, the fastest car rarely wins a race. Go look at my laps. The fastest lap of the night is usually somebody who's in 9th or 10th. It's more about consistency. And if you can consistently turn the same laps, even if you're slower than a guy who's fast and he's not consistent, you'll beat him. So, it's all about driving and setup. But the reception has been that sometimes the money looks like it's too much. $1,000 really isn't that much for a street stock driver. Most of the guys have $4,000 or $5,000, maybe $7,000, $8,000 in their car. There are guys that have $20,000 and $30,000 into their cars. You're always going to have that in every class of racing. Those guys aren't winning every weekend. Don't let that be the thing that stops you from going out there. I have less into my car than most people have into their quads, and I race very competitively. Just come out and have fun, and that's really what it's all about, and learn something. And you'll make a little money along the way, and even if you finish dead last, you still made more that night than you probably would have made doing a great performance at your local track. And by the way, we in no way want drivers to stop supporting their local tracks. We're a bunch of special events, run 1 or run all 10. At the end of the day, when you're not running with us, we're hoping that you're at your local track running and making sure that those tracks stay alive, because we've only got a few. And really, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring excitement back into racing. Get more street stocks, because if you want late models and modifieds, you've got to have a step between the 4 cylinders and a full-on modified. There's a lot of changes to what a car could do, and we're a middle step in there. We make a good step up or a step back. Either way, come have fun with us. It's a lot of fun. We have a ball. Everybody does.
Okay, James. Thank you.
Thank you.